Welcome back to another episode of the Lose Your Mind podcast, where myself and Alan are discussing all things to enhance our well-being in general. Last week, we reintroduced our podcast as we've been away for a while doing some exciting things, both creating, tapping into what we love, and writing books. And Alan, today we are going to talk about burnout because your book is all about burnout. It's a huge thing people are experiencing. It's not pleasant, and I think it'd be a great subject for us to chat about.
Well, good morning. And yeah, let's talk about it. Did I tell you I've got a book out?
I think you might have a few times,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. So there you go. Yeah, happy to talk about that in any detail that you want to. So I'm all yours.
Okay, well, I think looking back right to our very first series, ironically, when we spoke about what drew us to mindfulness, burnout was actually prominent for you, as was some of the things that ended up in my book prominent for me. And I think it'd be really nice for us to just touch on and see how things have evolved in the way that you share this in how you reached your own burnout.
Okay. Well, I think that burnout happened to me probably on the for the first and the biggest time about 10 years ago when I'd reached a position in the company I was in that I'd wanted for a long time. And it was a job I put myself under a lot of pressure to do, and too much pressure and self-imposed pressure, most of it. And I think this is the problem with burnout, is that it happens because we try and live up to expectations that are just not realistic, whether they are our own or whether they are from other people, or even a combination of the two. And by that I mean I set myself up to work too hard because I think that's what's needed, that's what's expected of me. So I've projected that thought onto somebody else, and it may or may not be true. They may expect me to work 18 hours a day. I don't know, but I've projected that onto them, and therefore on it comes back to myself reflecting.
Can you share what your experience with burnout actually felt like? Like, what changes did you start to notice in yourself to know that, you had this realization that you were essentially burning out? Because presumably there would have been a period of time before being aware of it and actually just being lost in it.
Yeah, I think I mean, it started with not being able to sleep and just having the constant mind racing during the night, which I know a lot of people get anyway. But the reason why that was happening is because I was working late into the evening, which I started out enjoying in a silly, perverse way, because I think sometimes you can work hard and imagine that you're justifying yourself to yourself and to others. Oh, look at me, I'm working hard. This is what we should be doing in life, and I'm contributing, and I'm, doing the best I can, and I'm moving forward, and I'm progressing in life. When actually you're not, because what happens is that you work late into the evening. You can do it once, you can do it twice. Everybody has to do it from time to time. But when you're working till 10, 11 o'clock, and then you go to bed an hour later, you've still got adrenaline coursing through you, and then you wake up at 2 o'clock, as I did, 2 o'clock in the morning, with a pounding heart and being wide awake, and that's it. That you're done. There's no like, oh, I might get back to sleep. It's done and it's over. So that was almost like the start of it. But when I realised it was burnout, is when I was working in the evening and not enjoying it, and then just saying to myself, I hate this, and becoming really cynical about everything. So you start to hate yourself, you start to doubt yourself, you start to lose who you are, and you also start to resent other people and what other people do. And it's just, it's a really unpleasant little echo chamber that you end up inside your own head. That's when I realized, and that's when I realized I had to do something different.
But fear not, people, there is a way out, isn't there? Which will come on to your book,
Oh
which
yeah,
is
go on then.
well, hang on, not just yet. I
Oh,
wanted to
okay.
just touch on something you said, where you said a lot of people wake up in the night feeling like that. And I feel that because of um, our belief system, we end up thinking it's okay that those things just become part of our life. Like, oh, this is just what I do. I just wake up at this time, or I just need to do this amount of hours. And we condition ourselves to think that's fine because it's so hard to
Mhm.
look after ourselves, isn't it? So
Yeah,
it's
true.
not so it's not really okay, but so many people just get caught in that loop of normalizing that sort of behavior.
Well, it does become the norm. And this is how we get into the topic of, toxic workplaces and toxic cultures. I remember leaving the office at sort of 6 o'clock one evening, which, my contracted hours were sort of 8:30 to 4:30, or as long as the job took was the actual wording in my original contract. But really, it should be 8:30 to 4:30, and you go home and enjoy your evening. But I remember leaving the office at 6 o'clock, which I would consider to be late. And I remember there was somebody in the office, and she used to do this quite regularly. She'd look at her watch. She was a senior manager. Look at her watch and joke with me and say, "Oh, banker's hours," because as in, bankers would traditionally do a 9 to 5. Turn up with their bowler hat and their briefcase and their sandwiches. They work till 9, work from 9 to 5, and then they go home on the train. So not this kind of, hey, if you want to work here, you've got to be like, 24/7, all systems go, forever on call, that kind of thing, which is what people were doing. And I think the other thing was because at that time, the smartphone culture was really taking hold. The iPhone had been out for a while, as had the BlackBerry, and all of a sudden you were just connected all the time. I remember getting my first smartphone. I don't know about you, and feeling really excited by it. And now I really don't like it at all. And I wish I had the bravery to take off email functionality at least so that I only read emails when I'm at my computer. But now you'll read them first thing in the morning when you wake up or last thing at night, or you'll be reading them on the go when you're, trying to enjoy some downtime. So, yeah, I mean, that's probably, now that I've said that, that's another action I'll take is take email off my phone.
Yeah, it's a good point. And I think when we are able to take these small steps, or at least recognize, because I've burnt out myself and noticed similar patterns creeping in at difficult times. And it's important to catch yourself and then have a way through, isn't it?
Well, tell me
I
about
think.
yours.
Well, I think sleep definitely is affected first. I can it always happens that I can't sleep. Um, and then I sort of overthink.
Hmm.
So my mind starts racing. I think I try and find solutions constantly to feel safe. So I go
Okay.
into this protective cycle. So if I feel overwhelmed, rather than dealing with the problem, I think, okay, I'll get as busy as I can and fit as many things into the day so I haven't got time to think. That's usually my first trigger that I notice now, I would say.
Okay, so some kind of common things between you and I. So sleep being
Mm.
one, insomnia is a wide problem. Not just burnout, obviously, but burnout suffers generally suffer from lack of sleep and that overthinking, that racing mind,
Mm.
which again is not always burnout. But I think what happens with burnout is it's just basically that these symptoms just don't stop, do they? They just keep going, and we keep producing this cortisol, this adrenaline that keeps us going, keeps up the pace. And then at some point, the body says no. And that's enough. And that's, it's not proven, but some believe that we stop producing cortisol because the adrenal glands have just had it. And that's probably not the technical term, but is that I'm not producing anymore. And so therefore you lose that get up and go. And that's why in the later stages of burnout, you sort of, you need to still be performing and you probably still want to perform, but you just don't have the guns for it anymore.
Mm. So what can we do, Alan?
Well, the most important thing we can do is recognize it and be aware. That is the most important thing we can do because, well, the second most important thing, I guess, or the second step is to then do something about it, obviously. So, and there are small little things we can do, which people often forget that it only has to be small things, but awareness is the most important thing because when you're in it, because you're getting all these dopamine rushes and serotonin hits that maybe you're achieving, you're doing well, and somebody's saying, "Hey, this is great, love your work, keep it up," all that kind of thing, and those kind of things feed our reward systems, also our fear systems. That if I don't keep this up, well, they won't say that to me anymore. So I've got to keep it up. But awareness, so therefore, I think that kind of masks it from you. But if you're aware what's happening to you as you're in these stages before it gets too late, because then life takes you on such a roller coaster you can't get off. But you can get off, and you can at least put the brakes on it and slow it down. And so it's recognizing the stage you're at, and then knowing at that stage what tools are available to you to do that. And everybody's different, of course, and everybody has different ways out. But like I think burnout it's not just a once in a lifetime thing. I think that people suffer it again and again and again, and in varying degrees. Everything's on a continuum, isn't it? So I've felt a little bit of that myself again recently, but I could recognize it, and I just know that small things. For example, just going out for a 15-minute walk this morning, beautiful day, the sun is shining, lovely bit of countryside near where I live, and just stepping out and being grateful for 15 minutes. That's all it took. I don't know what percentage of my day that is. Pretty small. But that's all it took to give me a real boost and just to keep that chronic stress at bay.
Well, thank you. I think it is important, isn't it? The more the older I get, it's not that I'm 80 or anything right now,
Oh, you're
but I
really
think
old, I know.
that as time goes by, I just really acknowledge that it's the little things.
Mm.
It's just that simple. And because it's so simple, people think it's hard work, which is nuts, isn't it? It's just like how because I think we're so used to having to do so much and work so hard that it almost feels weird that there would be no result from the small things because people just want results and rewards, like you said. And actually, we've got it all wrong for too long. So we need to make a change.
We
I'm
do.
not gonna not gonna break into Michael Jackson Man in the Mirror or something. That song just come to mind. But in your can I just ask one more thing? Because I know we need to wrap this episode up soon because
Yep.
we're doing sort of bite-sized episodes for people to just
Hmm.
listen to on their 15-minute walk, might we say. What a great thing to do.
Indeed.
Um, so if we were to break it down into,
Yeah.
say, rungs of a ladder, which if
Oh,
you
yeah. Funny you
read
should say that.
Alan's book,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's broken down. Could you just tell us the titles of those?
I will. So, for those of you that don't know, so I've got this book called The Burnout Ladder, and it came out really from what I've described in that I think that burnout is like going up a ladder. The reason I used that imagery was because we like to think of ourselves going up ladders in life, don't we? Like social climbers or career ladders. We even use those terms. So, but my metaphor is that we're climbing this particular ladder, the burnout ladder, and we don't know that it's burning under us. Okay. But there are 6 rungs to this ladder, and it starts out at the bottom with a rung called ignition, which is when you are about to make a change. Okay, so we're changing all the time, aren't we? So you might be taking on a new project, or you might be covering somebody's maternity leave at work, or you've just been promoted. You're just about to go into that. And sort of as you're preparing for that is a stage on the burnout ladder because you're making decisions here that will affect your next few months, even years. So that's ignition. It's an exciting time. This is the only rung of the ladder that you should be on. And I know someone, a friend of mine, who's always on this rung of the ladder, but he doesn't go any further because he knows what the pitfalls
Because he's
are.
got your book.
He's got my book and he talks to me and I tell him not to climb any further. But no, it's for example, being you taking on extra work. Are you taking on extra work is one of the questions I ask in my assessment questionnaire. And are you prepared to take on extra work? I ask that because obviously could be a red flag. Maybe you're at capacity already and you're taking on extra work. He's always taking on extra work because he's eager to please, right? And he likes to achieve and do new things. That's fine as long as you keep everything else under control. The second rung is called acceleration, which is when the rubber hits the road and you're off, and it's like, whoa, that feeling when your head hits the back of the seat and there's in a car that's flying and you can't do anything about it. So you're on the move. And it's an exciting time because you're probably working longer hours, you're probably working harder, but you're getting the rewards for it too. So you might get a pat on the back, or you just might get that intrinsic reward for achieving and doing things and contributing. But at the same time, there's a little bit of negativity creeping in because you might have thought back at ignition stage, oh yeah, I can change the world. And then when you get in to actually doing the thing itself, you realize that the world doesn't always want to play with you. So a bit of negativity can creep in the way we think. Then there's the third rung is neglect. When you're keeping going, but to keep going, you have to neglect yourself and those around you. So you might be cancelling social engagements, not because you don't want to be there, but you think, I'm going to work instead. Sorry, guys. And that's something to watch out for. Then you get into cynicism. This was this thing I talked about earlier, which is, really start to resent and hate what you're doing and hate everybody else, especially when somebody sends an email and you think, oh, yeah, well, look at you. How clever are you? And then you kind of, when your cortisol's burning out, then you get into disengage stage and it's kind of almost like depression where you just start to pull away. You disengage from the job, you disengage from people, you disengage from yourself. You start to lose a sense of who you are. And the final stage is embers, like the embers of a fire. It's the dying stages of a fire. And you can really equate that with depression, where you just don't want to get out of bed in the morning and you've just and probably you're taking time off, or you should be taking time off. A lot of people don't. I didn't. I just kept going. I was just like a zombie, just getting through the day until I discovered mindfulness, and that really helped me. So they are the rungs, and at each stage, I have 3 tools in the book. So the assessment is designed to say, am I on this ladder? If so, where am I? And just do a little look up, a look across, and say, these are the tools I think will help you. That's what it's all about. That's what you can do.
Well, it's very important to be aware, and those steps break it down because people can identify, can't they, with where they might be, because they might
Yeah.
not be able to acknowledge how far they actually are into real burnout. But there are things that we can do. Tips, like you said, about going outside. Mindfulness is a real big part of it, isn't it, as well? Being present and breathing. And we're going to share more on that in our upcoming episodes. And if you want to go back to series 1, we've got all the attitudes already there, haven't we?
It's all there. It's all available in the public domain. So I was just going to say something else as well on this. It's not just about work. I think, and maybe I don't, I mean, the book is geared towards working people, but I also mentioned in there that it's also about situations in life. We can burn out from situations in life where, it might necessarily be related to how hard you're working, but it could be that you've got different parts of your life that are just too much for you. It could be that you're caring for someone as well as working, or it could just be the fact that you're just stressed all the time for whatever reason, and you might just be anxious about something. And that can lead to burnout. So it doesn't necessarily have to be in a work only context.
Well, I think in some ways we're always working all the time, aren't we? Whether it's in an employed situation where you're earning money, people work really hard all the time. Just existing is hard flipping work some days.
Well put. Yeah. Well, we're in an ever off culture, unfortunately,
Yeah.
and that includes, somebody sent me a WhatsApp message, and I think, oh, damn, I didn't get back to them. So they're probably thinking that I'm rude or all that kind of thing. So these things all get to you and create stress in the brain and body.
But take it a step at a time or a rung at a time, as the case may be right now. And check out the book, available at
I
all
would.
places, available online.
It says it's self-published through Amazon and, help yourself. We'll put a link in the comments, shall we? Would that be
We
helpful?
shall.
I think so.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Well,
Good.
thank you, Alan,
Thanks for
for
this.
sharing that. Thank you. And we will be back for another episode of the Lose Your Mind podcast next week.
We will indeed. Thank you.
Thank you and
Goodbye.
goodbye
See you
for now.
next time.
Okay.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.